Welcome to another edition of the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio. As I like to say every Tuesday around this time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am simply appreciative and grateful of your presence, because without you, the Rashad Mills Show does not exist. So again, I'm thankful for everything that you do in terms of supporting the Rashad Mills Show. We have a special guest on the line, so I just want to jump right into it for the sake of time. We are fortunate enough to have Baltimore City Council President and mayoral candidate Brandon Scott joining us via phone. Council President, how are you this evening?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. Again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your leadership at this very difficult time, not only here in Baltimore, not only in the state of Maryland, but talking from a global perspective. So let's jump right into it, because I know you have a prior obligation, and we are fortunate enough to have you with for 30 minutes. So my first question is, just kind of tell us about, give us insider information in terms of any actionable steps that your team is taking right now to ensure the safety of everybody in Baltimore and, you know, in the state that's going to be affected, hopefully not affected, but with the coronavirus.
Yes, listen, the most important thing that people have to understand is that COVID is real. This is serious. We have to make sure that everyone is taking this seriously. When you hear the things that we're saying about not going out unless you have to, about not being in groups of 10 or more, about not visiting our seniors and people with pre-existing conditions, about everything down to washing your hands. We know this is a culture shock to everyone, but we want to keep people alive. The most important thing that we can do right now is to slow down the spread of this virus, and we do that by following the advice of the public health professionals. And we know they're advising us to stay at home unless we have to go out, and taking the precautions when you have to go out to make sure that you're not helping this virus spread. It's uncomfortable for all of us that many places that we would work at or go to visit. You know, all of these things are not functioning right now, but it's for the best interest of us as a people and really as a human race that we slow down. When everyone can be a hero right now by simply staying at home and adhering to the advice. You might not get sick if you contract it, but you might pass it on to someone that will. Stay at home unless you have to go out.
So you talked about several times of just slowing this thing down, this coronavirus down. And in preparation for the show, Council President, at one point the number was 244. And instantly I looked up within a matter of days. So now we're at 349, 41 of those cases in Baltimore City. I guess tell me, what do you think the city's level of preparation was prior to something of this magnitude? And then where would you rate it now within the last, let's say, week?
So again, listen, I was concerned about this a while ago, so I actually called for a hearing with the health department to update us on where they were, asked the mayor to have an emergency meeting with his cabinet, and we know that in Baltimore and in Maryland we've been functioning at a high level, but I'm going to continue to push us to be even better, and that's what it's about. It's not, I'm not going to criticize anyone. I'm going to show people how I lead, right? That's why I've been continuously communicating with the public via my social media feed, going out into East Baltimore, West Baltimore to give out information, coming up with innovative things like my office has put on the internet a asset where people can go on and click and make good to see what things are available for them, COVID related to that, getting food, all of the programs for seniors, all of these things are available. We have to continuously communicate the latest press to make sure that we are looking out for the best interests of Baltimoreans, and that's what I'm going to do through this crisis, because we simultaneously have to remain focused on violent crime in Baltimore as well.
So one of the questions that I want to ask you is, when did the coronavirus become real for you? I know somebody in a leadership role, obviously one of the things that you have to do is ensure the safety of everybody else, but when did it hit home for you, sort of like on a personal level? I'm very curious about that.
So listen, I have to be concerned long before other folks. So my concern, when we saw that the pandemic taking off in China, that's why I called for in February, because that's when I became concerned, because I knew that eventually it would end up on our doorstep, and we had to be ready to deal with something as much as we possibly could.
So one of the things you previously mentioned that you had talked about crime. So here's a statement that I've heard recently from somebody that I know and it's very near and dear to me, that it seems like a lot of people have been more concerned with the coronavirus than addressing the gun violence that has plagued Baltimore City for years. Council President, what would be your response to that statement?
Well, my response to that is that, listen, that's exactly why I have said from the beginning of this that this cannot, right? People can go back and look and see. I've been on the record of saying, I studied at the Board of Estimates last week, and we cannot let Corona always shine or outshine that we've had a public epidemic of gun violence in Baltimore for a long time. It's always going to be on the top of the priority list for me. That's why I'm continuously to push. I push the police department. I challenge the police commissioner today around how they're going to remain focused on gun violence, moving violent repeat offenders from our neighborhood, stopping the flow of illegal guns into Baltimore, because people are dying from gun violence, and even more people are actually dying from the overdose epidemic in Baltimore. We have to focus on men just like with the same vigor, the same dedication that we are with COVID.
So one of the things that I took directly from your website, and I think you just alluded to it as well, that the gun violence is not necessarily a police issue at this point, but it's more of a public health issue. Just kind of tell the people that are listening to the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio, all of the efforts that you have put in to trying to, for lack of a better term, like really cure this thing that has plagued us for years, this public health issue known as gun violence.
Right, we have to understand that. No, first and foremost, we have to have our focus on removing people for violence involved. However, simultaneously, we have to understand that we have to address other issues as a public health issue. First and foremost, what I did, I was the first elected official in Baltimore's history to say that gun violence is a public issue, right? And then demand now, not one but two mayors, that they have a force plan, not just with the police department, but with all the agencies, health, Wrecking Park, school, DPW, DOT, understanding that every single agency plays in a part of how we deal with them. Everything from lead paint to with trauma with the council under my leadership passed the CARE Act, dealing with racial equity and gender and economic equity in Baltimore. With under my leadership, we passed my equity assessment program, and we right before COVID took off, we passed legislation that would force the mayor's office to have a coordinated crime plan that doesn't just include the police department, that includes the other agencies as well. We are going to continue to push that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running for mayor, because I'm tired of asking. Only the mayor can actually dictate to these agencies what they're going to do. I've been doing this work legislatively, raising issue, trying to pass laws consistent on this issue, but have been frustrated because people continuously die in our city. Now I want to take the reins, implement those things myself, because as mayor, they will ultimately fall on me.
So, Council President Scott, when facing such a gargantuan task like the gun violence has been taking place again in Baltimore for years, how would you say, or how good would you feel in terms of the numbers? Is it just the numbers, or how do you, in essence, classify that as a victory? Is it to the point that when nobody dies, or when the numbers are at a certain level?
So listen, one is too many in Baltimore, and for me, they're not numbers. These are people. These are families. These are communities that are now going to be impacted with trauma. Children who won't be able to see their fathers and mothers. Mothers who won't be able to see their children. People who can't see their grandmothers. Like, that's what this means to me. Friends who go to schools. When I, at my time, have to speak at the funerals of young people, see classmates fill up the church and cry. When you see small caskets at funerals, when you see people younger than you go into the ground, you understand that these are not just numbers, man. These are people. And yes, we will use data to show how we're going in the right way, and when the numbers are going down, we'll continue to be happy about that. But it's not going to be enough. We're never going to celebrate while people are dying in droves. And we measure ourselves by the success, continuously push to have us be better than we ever have.
So, Council President Scott, here's the $1 million question. Can you attack this gun violence from one perspective, or is it just multi-layered perspective? Because one of the things that you noted that this is like generational trauma, structural racism, lack of opportunities, and systematic underinvestment in our city youth and family. So can you attack it from just one perspective, or do you have to go at it from this holistic perspective in order for this thing to be successful and lives not to be lost?
You have to do multiple things. Fighting gun violence in Baltimore is being stellar training in regions at the same time. You have to focus on the day-to-day violence, and the police will do that again by focusing on violent repeat offenders, focusing on the flow of guns, and targeting the groups that are committing violence. Simultaneously, we have to invest in the other things. Public schools, for the first time ever, will be a long-term investment to deal with violence in the long term. Right? Imagine if we had fully invested in public schools right now. How many more of my friends would be alive? How many more wouldn't be dead? How many wouldn't be in jail? How many would be in drugs? Right? How many families would be dead? Also, dealing with trauma. Every city agency has to understand that and dealing with public attacking violence from the health standpoint, breaking down, identifying who are the most young people to be the victims or perpetrator of violence, working with them and their families from family strength and training model. You have the wraparound services system, fully implementing a group reduction strategy where we allow people to change their way of life from violence into another form of life, something the city has refused to do, expanding, and we'll do that work for Safe Streets, a program that has been greatly successful in Baltimore. Thinking about how we're going to invest in workforce development, making sure that people who are getting education in schools can get a job in the city today, a meaningful career. Also, those individuals who are locked up, right? So in Baltimore, if we know that Sandtown has the highest amount of that in prison, we should be using the Office of Employment to go and train those people while they're in prison for the jobs that we have, so they come home, they don't have to go back. Dealing with lead paint, everything that the city does, and invest in those neighborhoods that we ignored for far too long will help.
So we talked about that the young people in Baltimore, one of the greatest, populations that we can invest in terms of strengthening the city and ultimately reducing the gun violence and everything that goes along with that. And you alluded to the fact of properly investing in Baltimore City schools. I guess just kind of tell the people that are listening to the show, why has that been a disconnect? It seems like a great disconnect for years that Baltimore City schools haven't been properly funded. Like where did that start, and what do you plan to do to change that?
Well, first and foremost, you have to understand 7th grade and essentially to keep the schools away to the state. And we know what happened. That there was a funding formula known as the Thornton formula found by the state, and not just in Baltimore, but the state of Maryland chose not to properly fund all of its focus. We now have the Kerwin that passed in this year, and over the next 10 years, we're going to get to the level where we need to be. But it was just generations of political failures that led to that. Think about that. That is one of the reasons why I ran for office in the first place, because I felt like my generation was ignored. But we know the state of Maryland said that over the last 10 years that it owes city schools at least $300 million a year. And we know that under my the city itself will also put more money into it.
So you listen to the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio. We have the opportunity to talk with Baltimore City Council President Brandon Scott via phone. Council President Scott is, of course, abiding by the social distancing. I think it's very important that we have leadership that only talks the talk, but of course walks the walk. So we were just talking about investing into the Baltimore City schools, and you mentioned the Kerwin Commission, right? That was established in 2016, to make sure that schools were funded and making sure that it was adequate. Just kind of tell the people that are listening what your ultimate goal is in that 10-year period, because you mentioned that it takes about 10 years. What would be your ultimate goal in a 10-year period, and number-wise, just to make sure that Baltimore City schools are up to par with other school systems in the state?
So we listen. This is something that's extremely complicated. So it's going to be very hard to try to simplify it out. So how it works as of right now, and of course, I have to say that this is free corona. All of these numbers are subject to, right? So it increases every year over 10 years. Like in the first year, it's the extra $40 million that have to schools. The next year it'll be more, and the next year it'll be more. So that at the end of that 10-year period, we can reach meeting the funding requirements from both the local and the state level. I'm just talking about how much more that the city has to put in. But it's not just currently about money. It's also about reforming the education system. It's also about teacher pay. It's also about resources for schools and making them community schools. It's also about redoing the education, making sure, like I said, that the education they get is applicable to the world that they live in today, which is this important.
So one of the things we were speaking about the young people here in Baltimore City, Council President Scott, and I have to ask you, it's always a hot button topic, and it never seems to go away, certainly within the last year, I guess. Tell me about your thoughts and your plan to address the squeegee boys. That's been an ever-growing issue.
So listen, this issue is one that we know is galvanizing to a lot of people. It's one that squeegees have been in Baltimore a long time. But we know now, and we have to address this issue in multiple ways. We cannot have anyone assaulting people, banging on people's cars, etc. But we also have to understand that these young people, especially the youth, the young, I'm not talking about grown men, I'm talking about the children that are out there, also need resources. What we would do in my administration first, we would use the Office of African Engagement, identify all those young people, see what resources that them and their families need, get them back to school, and push them in that direction. And for the adult people, see what resources they need, whether drug treatment, job, sports training, all of these things, and push them that way. And anybody who continues to damage cars and threaten people will be dealt with from a law enforcement point of way. We have to balance these things out, but we are not just going to criminalize our property, criminalize our children because they're out there washing. We try to get them the resources they need and hold people accountable for their actions at the same time.
So one of the things I got to ask you, we're moving forward, and the uncertainty of the coronavirus, again, is literally changing on a minute-by-minute, second-by-second basis. So if we fast forward and we think about June and July with the potential of schools being closed for the entire year, do you think that galvanizes more people to open up the police athletic leagues and rec centers so these children of Baltimore City, these young people, they have a healthy outlet?
So, no. We're not going to open up rec. If schools are closed, rec centers are not going to be open because it's not safe for them to be in there, too. It's going to be hard. We're going to have to learn and understand how we can recreate, keep our kids at home in a safe way. Also can't have them all going to playgrounds. That puts them at risk. This disease is serious. I had rec parks put signs up on playgrounds because we cannot have people doing unacceptable for us to do this. We have to save everyone's lives, including our kids. That's why we're going to be doing ways and suggestions on how to keep kids active, and we can do that in a safe way, home and social distance.
So, Council President Scott, obviously your name is in the race to be the next mayor of Baltimore, and a lot of people consider you the fresh face, sort of this fresh young face that's needed in order to take the city to a place that it hasn't been for quite some time. Just speak to the people that are listening to the Rashad Mills Show on Awesome God Radio and say specifically some of the things that you could bring to the table as the next mayor of Baltimore to get us to the new place.
Electing Brandon Scott the next mayor of Baltimore is doing something that it has been waiting for a long time. We've heard from generations, especially in African American communities, for a long time that they can't wait till someone from the new generation comes up with stuff learns everything they need to do, dedicates themselves to service, finishes school, learning the ways that government works, and be ready to take over. I am that person. Because what you get when election branch got someone that's been proven to be someone that's proven to be a leader. Nobody in this race was talking about gun violence in the way that talking about it prior to or after. No one other than me led the largest anti-violence movement in Baltimore, the 300-minute march movement. No one else in this race walking those streets at 1, 2, and M1 in neighborhoods that they would dare go, even in the daytime. What you get in Brandon Scott is you get the best of both worlds. You get someone that knows how to work legislation, that knows how to work policy, that knows how to make government agencies work, because I've built my professional career on doing that, but also someone that is not bought by the status quo, someone that wants to build a new, better city government, a new structure who is not tied to the hip to the existing structure, and someone that's of and from Baltimore. I'm the only person in this race who is a graduate of city school in this millennium. It's different when you went to those schools with no heat and air. It's different when you lived in those neighborhoods your whole life. You had to duck shootings, and you saw your first shooting 8 years ago, and you lost friends, and you lost family members and people around you. You've seen the devastation of drugs. You lived through zero tolerance. No one else lived through this as a young black man other than me. They either were older or they were living in Baltimore County. That's what I bring to this. Someone that knows Baltimore inside and out, and that can move Baltimore in a new way forward to take us to the heights we've never before.
So if I was an outsider, right, and I never grew up in Baltimore and I had no connection with the city, as a mayor, what would be one of the first things that you would want an outsider, their mind, to envision as it relates to Baltimore? How would you want Baltimore to be viewed from an outside perspective? Because let's face it, it's a very negative image in terms of how Baltimore is viewed outside of Baltimore.
So this is what I want. I want people inside Baltimore first to start understanding that we are better than folks say they are. We're going to not shy away from our issues. We have to deal with violence and the other issues that we have in Baltimore. But what people will see from the outside and the inside, from the inside out, is that we're now going to have leadership that knows our issues, that recognizes them, that tackles them from day one, but that also shows all that's great with Baltimore, and that we're going to be different, and that we have wonderful things going on, and we have capable leaders that understand what needs to be done to make Baltimore the best Baltimore that we can be. That's what our people will know everything about Baltimore, not just the negative.
And I think it was really important that you highlighted that Baltimore has a lot of beautiful things about it, and I think it's really important to have the leadership highlight those things as opposed to kind of addressing sort of the elephant in the room, right? And we know that Baltimore has some challenges, but Baltimore has a lot of beautiful things. And one of the things I want to thank you for, Council President Scott, is just, again, giving us a little bit of time of Baltimore City, somebody speakly doing as well. And then I know tonight, I believe, through your social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, that you're going to provide us with the latest updates on the coronavirus, correct?
Yep, we'll be live on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 8 o'clock, and we'll talk about COVID-19. I just want to say thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for spreading the good word to everyone.
Not a problem. Again, we would just thank you for all of your time and what you have done up until this point and what you are actively doing right now. And again, I think it says a lot about leadership just to take some time to be on the show and really encourage people to sort of follow the mandate has been placed right now in terms of social distancing, staying home if you're not a part of that essential community where you have to be outside of your house. And I want to give a huge shout out to Sydney Burns, someone that works directly with you. She just did a masterful job of just coordinating schedules. And again, stay tuned. Council President Scott tonight at 8 p.m. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, I should say, will give live updates as it relates to the coronavirus. So again, Council President Scott, thank you and the best of luck as you continue on your quest to be the next mayor of Baltimore City.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, wow. So I want to hear from you right now, right? So we heard from City Council President Brandon Scott here on the Rashad Mills Show, Awesome God Radio. I was fortunate enough to have him on as a guest, really giving us some of his time, but more importantly, some insight in terms of the direction that he wants the city to go, if in fact he is the next mayor of Baltimore. But in addition to that, right, James, he was really talking about some things as it relates to the coronavirus. And again, I truly, truly believe that leadership is not someone who ducks and hides. I think true leadership is being, at the forefront, right? Not in the background, not just on Twitter. No shots to the president, but not just on Twitter, but actually, in the forefront of everything. And I think it's important to hear from the leadership in Baltimore. And he is, in fact, the first person that actually is vying for the mayoral spot of Baltimore to be the guest on the Rashad Mills Show on Awesome God Radio. And I think that was just good, not for me personally, but for the people that listen to the show. Kind of give me your take on that.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, he really impressed me on everything he was saying. He really impressed me, man. He almost got me wanting to push the buttons for him, man.
One of the most interesting things, and I really want to have TJ Smith, Sheila Dixon, other candidates that are vying for to be the next mayor of Baltimore on the Rashad Mills Show. Because again, I think the people want to hear from you guys. You are the potential voices of leadership that will take the city from whatever that place is, right? From one place to the next. But one of the most interesting things that he said to me, and a lot of people may view it as small, but I viewed it as incredibly big, is that he's the only candidate that's from Baltimore.
Went to the schools in Baltimore. So he went through the whole experience, like he said, being in the schools, all of that, growing up in the neighborhood, losing friends by murder. That's what really caught me right there. I was like, you know what, he's right.
So in essence, I wanted to ask him, do you think he has an advantage because he's literally he's been invested in the community, and not just now that I'm, I'm running for mayor and I want to be the next candidate and I'm knocking on doors because I want your vote, but I literally have a strong tie to the community.
He should have an advantage just because of that. Because if you like he from where I'm from, you know what I'm saying?
It's a different feel, right? It's a different feel. So for people that are watching the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio, I know you're home, right? Because if you're not considered essential, I know you're home, and as a result of you being home, I want to hear from you. 877-479-4473. There is a phone line open, in fact, with your name on it. 877-479-4473. I want to hear from you. What are your takes? What are your thoughts? Maybe President Scott says something that you agree with.
How did you feel?
Yeah, maybe he said something that you totally disagree with. But I definitely want to hear from you before this evening is out. And one of the things that I really I thought was really powerful is when we talked about the gun violence, right? It's plaguing the city. Even before I asked him the first question surrounding the gun violence, that has been like a thorn in Baltimore's side for literally years upon years upon years. And so many lives, unfortunately, have been lost as a result of it, that he transitioned from the coronavirus to gun violence. So that lets me know.
No problem. He dug right in it.
Right, he dug right in it. And that lets me know that he wasn't easily distracted. He was still on course from one of the main things that has been like one of his selling points, right? And it's really addressing this gun violence. And again, I read it and I'll read it again. There was a concern from somebody that, again, was near and dear to me, that has been more concern placed on the coronavirus than addressing the gun violence. Do you feel that the coronavirus and all the resources and information that has been set aside for this, pandemic, do you think is overshadowed addressing something that has been here before the coronavirus? And unfortunately, when the coronavirus dies down, right, when the situation is well under control at some point, whether it's months, and which in fact I believe it will be months, has overshadowed that?
You're asking me that?
I'm asking you that.
I think it has. Because I was watching the news the other night, and then they kind of went back. They was like, 5 murders, and then they went right back to the COVID-19. I was like, it's overshadowing because we know people are still getting murdered in the streets.
Now, I think Baltimore Ceasefire, right? I had a pleasure speaking with them on the previous show, and I just love what they do in terms of really, really putting their heart and soul into Baltimore and trying to prevent even one person from being
they do
murdered.
A good job too.
I think it was a post on one of their social media feeds, and I think we went 5 days, I believe, without having anybody murdered.
That's good.
And I think
that's good.
It's one of those interesting things, James. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that when we're talking about losing one life, right?
Yeah.
I think we have to talk in these very relative terms.
Uh-huh.
You know, should we be at the place of celebrating that we can go 5 days without a murder? But then should we also say, you know what, we got to start addressing it on the level where it's actually at. So if we go 1 day, that's like a small win.
Yeah. And 5 days is a big win, but you got to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere. And again, I was going to say that cliche kind of term, in a perfect world, nothing is perfect about the world that we live in.
Yeah, true.
But
true.
ideally, and that's why I asked Council President Scott that very same question, how do you judge the level of success when we're talking about gun violence and murders? What does that look like? Because I'm going to be honest, and I'm not saying it's him, and with his passion that he speaks about it with, I don't sense that it's him. But with some of the local politicians, I truly believe that they view it on a numbers basis only.
They do.
Because why?
Because they always say the numbers.
They always say the numbers, but again, they are not truly
from Baltimore.
From Baltimore and invested in the city. So if you are not, it's like one of these things I would hear about it years ago. And it was always in reference to New York. It was like, if you are not from New York, then you don't understand New York,
you ain't
right?
from New York, stay out of New York.
Right. It was one of those things, right? New York, very braggadocious community.
Yeah.
But I think the same could be said even more so for Baltimore. Like, Baltimore has this unique blend of people, places, to a degree, like the food. Like, you can literally, you can go other places in the world, but it's nothing like a crab from, this region. But again, if you're not from Baltimore, then you won't truly understand. You won't understand like that culture.
Not really.
And you won't understand, like, if you haven't had a friend impacted by a loss or a family member as it relates specifically to gun violence.
Yeah.
I think you may view people as just numbers.
Yeah, you do.
That's 167. That's 301. That was the first.
Right.
You are not in touch with that. And one of the things, again, TJ Smith, I had an opportunity to speak with him on another platform. And one of the things that I truly admire about him is, and this was long before his family was directly impacted by gun violence as it relates to his brother, is him working with the police department, right? As a police spokesman. He was literally on the scenes of hundreds of murders.
Yeah, I know that can be tragic to the mind.
And I asked him off air, and I said, man, what was that like? And he said, man, it becomes so tiring to see these families going through, this kind of situation. I think it's important for candidates, and again, not to say that if you have an experience, you don't understand the magnitude of gun violence and crime as it relates to what has been taking place in Baltimore. But I think it connects you to it a lot more.
Yeah. Because, I mean, to be honest, you kind of don't. If you haven't had the direct experience, you kind of don't. You just on the outside looking, and then you trying to say, you'll be saying like, oh yeah, I know it would feel like this. I think it would feel like this. You're just doing a lot of assuming, but when it directly impacts you, it's totally different.
It's a different feel. So it was very interesting. But again, I want to hear from you. We still have about 25 minutes left in the show. And I am curious on your thoughts. Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio had the opportunity to speak with Baltimore City Council President Brandon Scott. So I really, really want to hear from you. That number, there is a phone line open. It has your name on it, 877-479-4473. Again, that number is 877-479-4473. Not to make light of the situation and where we're at from a global perspective, but I know you're home. I know you're home, so this is the opportunity.
Hey, I'm looking at the comments on this guy named Matthew Rambo. He said he had a roommate and a friend that was shot and killed in 2005, and it says it took him years to recover from that.
Yeah, so again, Matthew Rainbow, one of my great friends. Matthew and I connected while I was a sports broadcaster out in Oregon, and he has been incredibly supportive of everything that I have done from that point up until now. So I definitely appreciate you. So he is chiming in from the West Coast. I think he's still in Idaho, if I want to say correctly. Yeah, so a roommate, friend shot and killed in 2005, took years to recover, right?
Yep.
So we're talking a place like Idaho. Idaho is not the same. The culture is completely different from Baltimore. It took him years to recover. So imagine, again, Matthew, thank you for being so candid and sharing. He said the only thing I know about the violence is watching The Wire. I couldn't imagine watching it on the news each night. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I asked Council President Scott about is what would you want the perspective of Baltimore to be outside of Baltimore?
Yeah.
Right? Because to me, and I hope nobody takes this in a very offensive manner, but this is my analogy.
What you about to say, man?
No, I hope nobody takes this. No, I'm gonna keep it clean, James. You know, I'm a clean cut guy, so I'm gonna keep it clean. But this is my analogy as it relates to Baltimore. You ready for this one?
I got my eye on you.
You got get ready.
That's okay, because I know you from Baltimore, so
I love Baltimore, but
you
this
good.
this
You
is
good.
what Baltimore is like.
Okay.
Baltimore is like your drunk uncle. And let me tell you why. And again, I hope nobody is offended by it, and I'm not in any way, shape, and or form, right? Talking about anybody's uncle or even talking about people that have struggled with substance abuse. If you know me on a very personal level, you know I have been subject to it, right? And even family members with substance abuse challenges. So I actually feel qualified that I can say this and I won't receive backlash. But if in fact I do, that's fine. This is the Rashad Mills Show, Awesome God Radio. I am open and willing to talk to anybody about anything. So with that being said, Baltimore is your drunk uncle. Baltimore is the uncle that you have seen the better times from that uncle. You have seen that uncle in different roles, right? As a great father, as a great husband, as a great uncle. You know that uncle is full of life. He's full of personality. But he has a challenge. But despite that challenge, you never give up hope and you continue to love on that uncle. And no matter how many times that you see that uncle in a drunken state, you wholeheartedly believe, truly believe, and I'm not talking about fake belief, you truly believe that one day that uncle will reach the level of sobriety.
That's a good analogy. Let me give you some applause on that.
Let the studio audience clap for me. What do you think of that one, James?
That was a good analogy. That was good.
That's my take on it.
I would say I feel that way. The way you just explained it, I can say I feel that way. I love my city, and I've seen when I was younger. Oh, it was perfect. It was perfect. It was a nice place. It wasn't. You may hear something here and there, but it wasn't like it is now. So
let's face it.
Better day.
I don't even play cards, but let's call a spade, right?
Yeah.
Baltimore has, in my opinion, has gotten drastically worse. But I refuse to give up on Baltimore. I refuse to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to.
I refuse to do it because I've seen better days.
Yeah.
Like I remember going to Lexington Market when the donuts were $4 for $1.
Oh yeah.
And they were good too.
Yeah, they was.
Yeah.
For that horrific scene.
So now, right? So let's be real. So now that Lexington Market scene is not one.
No, it's not that pretty. You don't even want to tell. I have a coworker, and I was like, they were like, yeah, it's a good crab cake stand. I was like, yeah. You might not want to go down
right,
there.
so it's very troubling and challenging right now.
Yeah,
but again, do we give up on it? And I think there has been some talk about, revitalizing that area within the next year or two in terms of doing a just complete revamp. And I think it's one of the incredible staples of Baltimore, the world famous Lexington Market. And I still believe that it is that. Yeah. But again, it needs some work. So again, Baltimore,
it's just a lot of cleaning up they would have to do. Yeah. Because I think they remodeled it and everything. It looks nicer, but it's just what's on the outside of it.
Man, I think that again, Baltimore is like that uncle that has some challenges. We just refuse to give up on it. So again, 877-479-4473. I just want to make mention of everybody that's tuning in. Matthew, thank you so much. Again, tuning in from the West Coast. Nicole Mosby Taylor, thank you for tuning in to the Rashad Mills Show. And by the way, I'll give you a plug. Women in Business International, I believe they have a show coming up next on Awesome God Radio. I don't know if she'll actually be in studio or actually doing it from a remote location. So again, stay tuned to what they do. They always have great guests on.
Yes, they do, always.
And bring
always.
quality content. My lovely fiance, Nicole, thank you for all your support. And thank you for that amazing steak prior to actually coming to the studio. Man, a nice piece of steak, some vegetables, some onions.
That's why you was looking so bright and everything when you came in. Hey, he was shining when he came in.
Oh, man, incredible. So,
again, you had them all hyped up and everything, getting on my nerves.
Yeah, you know, I got to be ready. LJ Ellis, thank you so much for tuning in. Have Mercy, thank you so much for tuning in. And Carlos Harris, thank you so much for tuning in to the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio. First 25, 30 minutes of the show. We were privileged to have Baltimore City Council President Brandon Scott joining us on the show, just kind of sharing some insight in terms of his leadership, where he's going with the coronavirus, in terms of the information. I know on his Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages, there will be updates. There have been updates. I want to say twice a day, but to be on the safe side, I know it's been once a day, and at 8 o'clock. So if you have an opportunity, please go to one of his forms of social media so that way you can get the latest information as it relates to the coronavirus. So as of right now, so we're talking 349 confirmed cases within the state, and then we want to section it off to Baltimore City. I believe that number has been 41.
Wow.
Yeah, that number has been 41. Wow. These are the numbers that I received, and I'll actually give you the source. So if those numbers have changed within the time of the show, please excuse me, but I got those numbers directly from Maryland.gov. So again, 349 confirmed cases. If we want to section it off to Baltimore City, so we're talking 41. We're talking 41. And, you know, a lot of the leadership and the things that I listened to stated that, quite frankly, we haven't even hit the peak of it.
Yeah, I'm quite sure we haven't.
Yeah, we haven't even hit the peak of that. So again, one of the questions that I asked City Council President Brandon Scott, there was a level of concern. I'm thinking fast forward, right? So we are at March the 24th. I'm thinking June the 24th. What does that look like? And again, nobody knows other than God. July the 24th. And I'm thinking, how are our kids going to be, right? So he talked about a lot of, when he mentioned gun violence, there was always mention of young people. What does that look like for our young people? And I asked the question, is it possible to have city recs open? And maybe, I don't think that the question was maybe worded properly, or he misunderstood it, to say that it wouldn't be wouldn't be safe. But I'm talking about, obviously they have staffing there. So, you know, if I've been sitting in the house for months, school is no longer an issue for me. Summer camp is no longer an issue.
What else am I supposed to do?
Like, what does that look like?
And I think he might have been saying it won't be safe, maybe because of the COVID-19. I'm hoping that's what he was thinking.
That part makes, that makes sense. But
because he did just go, it wouldn't be safe. So I'm just hoping that's what he was thinking about the COVID-19.
Wow.
Versus not being safe from gun violence.
Okay. Well, I didn't think it was in terms of the gun violence, but what do we do at this point in terms of, because I know that's something that's very, very impactful to a lot of people that are listening to the show. You have, school-age kids and school being shut down. Like, what in the world goes on in the summer? So again, it's a minute-by-minute, second-by-second situation that's ever-changing. So I just want to send, a shout-out again to Sydney Burns, and she is the staff of the communications with City Council President Brandon Scott. She has literally done a masterful job of making sure that he got on the show. And she said, if we ever need him again, just reach out.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And I'm not saying that I'm swaying one way or the other, right? In terms of any political, I guess you could say, affiliation or my vote or anything of that nature. But a huge shout out to Council President Scott. I mean,
he really impressed me. And I've heard him speak before, but I think because of your questions and how you answered them, I was like, okay.
Yeah. And not even that. Like, I wanted to send a shout out, like, during this difficult time that, we were trying to coordinate. I literally sent him a message via Instagram.
Yeah.
Via Instagram. And he said, man, I don't have a problem with it. Coordinate with my team. And again, super shout out to Sidney Burns for just making the connection. So,
that's how you know you're a young man. He gonna reply to you on Instagram.
Man, and I just love it because I think at this time right now, we need to hear from leadership, and I think not just Brandon Scott, but I think all the leaders.
Yeah,
we are hearing from them. I know TJ Smith is incredibly active on social media, and he's keeping people aware. He's practicing social distancing as well, and just staying in tune with the people of Baltimore. Wow, I'm in a good place, man. Despite everything that's going on, I really am. Yeah. I'm in a good place. I feel comfortable about the leadership that we have right now on a local level. When I say local, whether it's the city of Baltimore, the state of Maryland, Governor Hogan it feels like he has just stepped up.
He's not playing with him.
No, he's not playing at all. I feel like Governor Hogan has stepped up to the plate with the bases loaded. A full count.
He has. Yeah, he's impressed me too because I was kind of on the fence with him too. But for this right now, he's doing his job. He's doing his job.
Because I think leadership great leadership can't be in a place of indecisiveness.
Right.
And if in fact you are, I don't think that you can let the general public see that.
Exactly.
Right? I think when you truly are a leader, whether you are a doctor, a pastor, a teacher, if you're going to be a place of indecisiveness, especially as it relates to some of the things that are going on now, right? We're talking about the coronavirus. This was like way out of left field, but now it is literally in the face of a lot of people. And I think that leadership has to be decisive. Leadership has to step up and make decisions. And I think Governor Hogan is doing, a masterful job of that. And again, I don't care if you are a Democrat, a Republican, an independent. That's not what I'm talking about here in the Rashad Mills Show on Awesome God Radio. We're just talking about the leadership and really making choices that's going to impact the masses, right? And everybody's not going to be satisfied with the choices that are made.
Nah, you can't make everybody happy.
But the goal is to satisfy the masses, right? And I think that the leadership from a state and local level
keep everybody calm and get everybody to understand that this is serious. Because I was sleeping on it too, like I ain't worry about no COVID night, whatever. I'm going to church. I'm going here. Then after a while, you like, man, you know what? Maybe this thing is serious. Because I don't want to pass it on to nobody. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to catch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, man, it's so important to, at this time, for just people in general to be, to take yourself out of the equation.
Yep. And I think that's where I got it. Yep.
Yeah, to take yourself out of the equation. And I know we have a ton of things that we are responsible to do on a daily basis that require us to be outside of our residences, right? So I think now just following the rules. And I know, James, that you hate following the rules.
No.
Yeah, you do, James. Yeah.
No. I think I'm gonna tell you a little story too while we on this. Before I came here, I was in the supermarket. And they had a sign on the door that say, this about the social distance. And it was funny because when you got to the line, the cashiers were telling people to hey, stand back, get that person to 6 feet. Mm-hmm. This guy was standing kind of close to this woman, and the cashier said, you need to move back from her and give her 6 feet. This dude kind of went into the little frenzy, man. Oh, man, come on, with this ain't nothing but a little flu. What you worry about? Everybody talking about social distance. And that goes back to the point. It doesn't matter how you feel. You should at least respect that person in front of you.
Yeah. But you know what? I guess it's so interesting because as adults, we are accustomed to living our life, for the most part, on our own terms, right? The way we want. So if you walk into a store, whether it's a Walmart, whether it's a Target, your local grocery store, and somebody is saying, hey, make sure you practice social distancing and you stand back 6 feet. you kind of give them that like, what? That kind of look. But again, it's so incredibly important right now in this day and age and this time that we do follow the rules because it is so much bigger than us as an individual.
Exactly.
And again, man, I told Council President Scott this. It was interesting. Sunday, I devoted some time, in preparation for the show, doing my research, things of that nature. It was 244 confirmed cases at that point. So we're talking Tuesday evening, and now we're at 349.
Yeah. So
and I think, and again, I'm not good at math, so don't quote me, but I think I heard that it was since the coronavirus like really became this, I guess you can say, global thing that it is now, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
That here in the state, within the last 2 days, it was the fastest time period in terms of those numbers going up.
Yeah.
So within another 3 days, or maybe by week's end, we're at 349 now. I wouldn't be shocked if we're looking toward.
It's going to go up. It's going to go way up because of all the tests that were held back. Now they're starting to get all of those tests that they held back. They're getting them through now. So the number's going to go up.
Absolutely. So we got a few more minutes left in the Rashad Mills Show here on Awesome God Radio. Again, a super shout out to City Council President Brandon Scott for joining us for the first half an hour on the show to talk about coronavirus. I said coronavirus. Excuse me.
I clicked the clap button.
You clicked the clap button.
I clicked the
applause. Let me say that one again. The coronavirus, gun violence, and everything that relates to Baltimore. And huge shout out.
This is live. That's live.
That's live. Yeah. And Sidney Burns, who works in his Office of Communications, actually setting it up. And again, if you want to be staying abreast, staying posted of everything that's taking place, go to Brandon Scott's, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages. At 8 o'clock, we'll be providing live updates as it relates to COVID-19. And while we have some time, James, I just want to send, super shout outs to all of the teachers, not just here in Baltimore, but across the world. I know your level of appreciation has gone up tremendously.
Get to relax.
Has gone up tremendously.
Yeah, they probably ready to get back now.
Yeah, so now parents are really seeing, right, the hard work that you go through on a daily basis for 7.5, 8 hours, educating and working with our beautiful boys and girls. So again, shout out to all of the teachers, man.
Shout out to the teachers.
Just uploading the work, man. Just uploading the work to various learning sites and just making sure that the packets were distributed. And again, the leadership from Baltimore City Schools and school districts just across the country, man. And again, this is a time where if you are a leader and you have a platform, this is not the time to shy away. This is the time to, in fact, step up, make sure your voice is heard. And I gotta say this, James, and I'm a bit selfish, but you understand why. Man, shout out to all the therapists, the psychiatrists, the psychologists who are working and making sure, because again, I had to say this, I'm a therapist, so I wanted to throw in a plug for my colleagues. Man, I think it's so incredibly important that right now, I view people in the mental health field on the same level as doctors and nurses. I truly do.
Yeah,
because right now I think there's so much anxiety, from not even a week-to-week or day-to-day basis. I'm talking minute-to-minute and second-by-second basis with so much uncertainty just swirling around. I think we're probably seeing an all-time high as it relates to spike in anxiety. People are depressed. There's so much worry as it relates to how would I feed my family, my kids, and there's just so much that goes on to it. So shout out to all of the people in the mental health field that are making themselves available, whether it's doing telehealth, literally sitting in your kitchen with your sweatpants on and your favorite slippers and your favorite cup of coffee, but you're making sure that you are available to help people. And again, this is just like with the doctors and the nurses, man. Shout out to the doctors and nurses. They're showing up for people, 24-hour shifts, and again, they are still humans, right? They're still humans, and they have family and friends to worry about, but they're showing up for the sake of other people, because this is not a profession or a love that somebody pushed them in, forced them into. This was something that they chose to do, and I think it's huge, man.
Thank you.
Everybody that is still working at these stores that we don't normally understand or would contribute the value to people working at the grocery store, sanitation workers, Target, other stores like that without these people being there, man, you might not be able to get your your vegetables or your food or whatever it looks like.
You're right about that.
Maybe
shout out to all of them.
Yeah, not having your
trash
taken away.
Shout out to all the Walmart workers,
Post office.
Yeah,
correction officers, man.
Correction
and I think this
officers.
is a great time, too, to just let's not forget about the brothers and sisters that, are detained to this point. I think it's important. They are humans as well. And don't give me, they did whatever to get there.
Yeah,
That's not something I'm trying to listen to. But I think it's so important that we still make sure, as best as we can, even writing them a letter, right? Because I think a lot of the visitations have been halted to a degree. But it's so incredibly important that we still check on people behind the walls right now and let them know that they are loved. Because, again, think about somebody that was scheduled to go to court, possibly on a release. And now, with the courts, not being open, that's on hold. So imagine what that level of anxiety is like now, right? So it's so many things so many ways, I should say, that people have been affected by. So again, James, thank you for showing up, man, and do all that you do.
Always my pleasure, brother.
I will give you the elbow bump again. I don't know if you properly washed your hands, so I'll give you the elbow bump. So again, thank you for everybody that tuned into the Rashad Mills Show and Awesome God Radio again. At the sake of sounding like I've been on repeat, thank you for Sydney Burns from the office of City Council President Brandon Scott, who joined us on the show, and she set it up. Thank you for Council President Scott for taking your time and sharing some insight on how you're going to address the coronavirus, what you're doing, and being on the forefront as it relates to the gun violence here in Baltimore and just trying to make Baltimore a better and much safer place that we all love. So I know Women in Business International is coming up, and they always have amazing guests. They only have one guest today, and that's strange for them because they normally come in. They come in like so many of them. It normally looks like Beyonce's dances, like it's 1,000 of them. So you never know what you're going to get from them. But it looks like they have an amazing guest coming up at the 8 o'clock hour. So again, stay tuned for that, and go ahead and download the Awesome God Radio app. If you're a team Android or Apple product, doesn't matter. Download their app so you can stay abreast of all the amazing content that Awesome God Radio is producing. And again, you're home already, so go ahead and listen to the quality content that Awesome God Radio is producing. So I love you guys madly, and I will see you next week. And stay tuned for Women in Business International. And James, if at all fails, wash your hands.
No doubt. Peace, y'all. Thank you for joining us.
One of the things, like,
Hold on. Mike's down.